Hello and welcome to another week of Indo GAA, where we look back on all the weekend's action in football and hurling. We're going to kick off with football this week, and I'm joined by a very happy Dick Clerkin, who got a nice little present yesterday with Rory McIlroy, picking up a nice piece of tin with the Augusta Masters only a couple of weeks around the corner. Dick, I can see our Spotify listeners won't be able to see it. Our YouTube viewers will be, but there's a glow on that lovely bald head of yours.
I've had a great run starting last weekend. Somebody looked after me in Cheltenham, and I had a wee wedge to do something with, so I put it on Rory to win the player.
Oh, yeah, boy!
I've had a bit of a roll, like bit of a roll.
Good man. You were just a quick one on Cheltenham. First time over there. How did you find it, experience-wise?
Great experience. Listen, we took my dad over, who would have been big into horses over the years, never been. It was his 70th last year, and we said me, my brother Ben and sister Alice took him over for the day. Brilliant experience. Wouldn't rush back, Mike, if it was a race. It was like a big, as I said, it was like a big Leopardstown or a big Ferry House festival day. It had all the same stuff. Bit of effort getting in and out of it. No point in saying otherwise. But great experience. Great to be there, and probably felt a wee bit underdressed when you seen the get up of a lot of the guys out there. You need to go a bit prep. But great day. And I suppose when you have a few winners to kick the day off, it sort of takes the pressure off, you know. Unfortunately, my brother wasn't as lucky. I didn't share the tips around, but it was a great day. We all enjoyed it.
A full wallet always makes things an awful lot easier, I tell you that.
Something a lot to be said for winning money in cash. I wouldn't, we don't use cash anymore. It's been that long since we've been the races, and sterling as well. It just all felt it was worth more coming out the gate.
Yeah, I always found over in Cheltenham when you're winning and you're getting sterling back, you're obviously winning more. When you're losing and you're losing sterling, you're losing more. But Dick, you kind of flagged it up on the show a couple of weeks ago about, well, we said there were potential kind of changes to the rules, and there looked like are going to be permanent changes to the rules. Just a brief overview of the games, and we'll probably take in even particularly the Division 1 games between Division 1 game between Tyrone and Donegal, and your own Division 2 game, Monaghan and Meath. The 12v11 is no more. Rory Begum was still very prominent, and Niall Morgan was still very prominent, but keeping that fourth defender or that fourth player back, I don't know, I found it was definitely a better spectacle over the weekend as well. How did you find it in the games you were watching?
Yep, I got 3.5 games in, so I'm not like Pat Spillane. I can't just get away with watching 8 or 9 hours of sport every day of the weekend. But for what I seen, I definitely enjoyed the Galway Dublin game. I thought that was a really good, intense contest as well. Kerry, Armagh, definitely Kerry seemed to benefit from the new tweaks. And again, watching the Monaghan game in person in Navan on Sunday certainly did. Wasn't a whole pile of change for Monaghan because, like Tyrone with Niall Morgan, they figured out a way to keep utilising Rory Beggan. She was chatting to Darren Hughes here last Friday, and we were just chatting about the new rules. He said, well, it's not going to really impact Monaghan because they actually had been keeping 4 back and letting Rory up, and I hadn't really actually noticed that, but they would have been keeping, say, Gavin McPhillips. They would have always been keeping a +1 almost as a sweeper, because Rory is so effective through the hands and through the feet. He was almost like a better ball player than some of their outfield players. So that's going to be a bit of an anomaly too. You're still going to see keepers who the team sort of feel that he's as good, if not a better ball player, to push up and have somebody dropping back as a +1.
That's okay though, isn't it? But just knowing that there's not an extra one now, like it's one-on-one. Yeah,
that's it. And you could definitely see there was less chance for teams to throw the ball around. But the onus now, and I suppose this goes back to the original thinking of Jim Gavin and the FRC. The onus now is for teams to push out. You know, and they have the opportunity now to push out and put a press on and not let a team sort of throw their ball about. And if you want to sit back, like Meath done, and again, allow a team to take their 2-pointers, you're going to get punished. So it's up to a team now. You know, there's no excuse now. Go out, push out. Don't let teams get free shots off and 2-pointers. You've no excuse that they've a +1 to throw it around. And that's hopefully what we'll see more of.
Yeah, we just fly through a couple of Division 1 games. It's funny because there's nearly more jeopardy in 2 and 3, but obviously 1 is the marquee division. It finished Donegal 19 points, Tyrone 25. Donegal made 10 changes, which they're fully entitled to do. And to me, from what I saw of the game, we're fully trying to win the game and giving it a good lash at the end. But when you're down a lot of your kind of key personnel, Michael Murphy aside, there's probably going to be a bit of a quality deficit here. a kind of an important kind of win for Tyrone as well, because they're just in that nice little middle ground now where they're kind of safe. And this, like, just on Niall Morgan as well, he still had a huge influence. Like, he was catching ball out in the middle of the field, he was catching ball in his own line, he was stroking over long range frees, he was delivering ball in. Is there any, I don't think a defender would take it this way, but is it any slight on a defender where he's the fourth man back and the goalkeeper's the one that's going out playmaking? Is there anything in that?
There is, to a point. You'd have to be worried that if you have a player out on the field that's playing midfield or wherever it is, that it's essentially assessed that he's a lesser footballer than the keeper. And that's what you're saying. Yeah, that's essentially what you're saying there.
Yeah.
It's better Niall Morgan or Rory Began being a playmaker out in the attacking side of the pitch than this player. You'd have to wonder, is that a weakness in the team, is what I'm sort of saying. And I think there is an argument there. Like who, and I would say teams will sort of look at and sort of say, you know, if he's not really going to add value more so than the player that he's displacing, there's no point in bringing him up, really. Now, there's the only other one aspect of it now, and I only just thought of this morning, Mike, that, correct me if I'm wrong, with the keeper, see, the keeper if you leave the keeper back at the house, he can't get the ball. If the ball comes back into your defending half, he can't receive the ball in there, whereas the fourth defender can.
Yeah.
So it's probably better in terms of ball, almost like a better safety net to have the keeper up. And then if they need to come back, they'll probably have a +1. Which I'm not sure. Yeah, you will be interested to see over the next couple of games. Does that play out? Does the ball maybe come back in odd time, and then you'll have a 3-on-4 in the defence, and they can throw it around, which they couldn't with the keeper. So we'll see. It'll really all dictate how a team uses the keeper and what type of keeper they select. We'll talk about Armagh at the minute. Poor Ethan Rafferty got bumped, but was that a wee bit too hasty by Kieran McGeeney? Not realising that actually no, that the keeper still can come up. You just have to think a wee bit differently about it. So I'd say next week you might see a few different decisions as well from managers. Just
on Donegal, it's a disadvantage in a way for them to get to a league final. They're safe now. They've earned their points on the board. It's a bad scenario where you have a competition where somebody does not want to get to the final. How do we, like, it's just an extra week realistically, isn't it? And they've bought this extra week, hopefully, by changing the championship structure for 2026. But that should not be the scenario where going to Croke Park and trying to win a Division 1 title is actually impinging on you the week after.
No, two things. That there's only, I've repeatedly said this, that there's only a certain amount of trophies can be won for any team in a given year. Each one of those should stand up on their own merits, and they shouldn't be compromised by fixtures one way or the other. Like, as an example, a couple of my relations are big Newcastle supporters, and they were at the Carabao Cup final at the weekend, and they just said this was the best day ever, winning a trophy in Croke Park or in Wembley. Now, that's the 4th or 5th tier competition that Premier League plays in. Why can't we celebrate and have our own league finals up at the same level? I've never really understood that, and that's a structural issue in terms of fixtures, but even teams as well, that they should be promoted because they are worth. They're not an All-Ireland title, they're not a provincial title, they don't need to be, but they are important and they should be valued. I really treasure the league medals I have. We're all looking forward to going to a league final, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. And it is disappointing that this caveat is over the Division 1 final, because it should be the marquee league, because the league is such a good competition, Mike.
Yeah.
It should finish off with a as a showpiece in Croke Park. So it's a scheduling thing, and we've said this before. It's largely an Ulster issue because they play their preliminary the week after, and it's typically top teams are involved. So I think they need to look at that. I don't blame Jim McGuinness. I think he's been put under pressure in terms of, trying to throw games. He doesn't do what any other team does in terms of protect his panel. He's not going to be putting boys out and flogging them because there is such a demand on panels now. You've got to be thinking the long game. They're just sort of a victim of circumstance. But definitely, and this happens a lot. It's happened too often. It's nearly the third year in a row, if not more, that I can remember that there's been a caveat to the Division 1 final. It definitely is something that those that are in the position to do it need to do something about it.
Just even
another thing, Mike, sorry to interrupt, even introduce now that almost maybe a seeding or a rating system. The higher up the table you finish, does that carry on then into the championship draw. Just some carrot for finishing top of the table as much as a league final could be introduced. Something that will incentivise teams to not sort of pull up in the last two or three rounds of the league.
Because history would suggest in the last couple of years, Mayo won the Division 1 league title, were beaten by Roscommon the week after. Westmeath won Division 3 last year, were beaten by Wicklow a week later. Do you know what I mean? It is very, very difficult. And when you win something, there's naturally a high as well, and you're almost set up for something to ambush you the week after. So it's definitely something that needs to be changed. Just even looking at the Mayo Derry game, good performance by Mayo, by the way. 219 to 117 win, having started quite slowly. Matthew Ruan was absolutely flying. It's gas between him and Conor Glass. They hit 14 points from the middle of the park. Glass hit 3 2-pointers at the end. Just something I did want to focus on, and I was kind of pushing for this change. The change with the end of the game, with the hooter. Mm-hmm. Like, this was mad. At the end of the first half, Jordan Flynn's goal. Mayo had a goal chance that they butchered, and Derry broke up the field and had a chance themselves, and they butchered it, and Mayo went back down the field and got a goal. And it was perfect because, a hooter just coming in and signalling the end of the half is a bit of a disaster, whereas this, it should be the end of a play, and this was high drama. Like, that's the perfect kind of scenario. I do think the tweaks, and it was always going to take a couple of tweaks, but I do think we're very close to something here.
I do. I think there's not a whole pile else. Some of the penalty for the break in the 3-up rule, I do still think is severe. Like, again, it happened on Sunday in the Meath Monaghan game, and the exact same happened in the Monaghan Louth game the previous week. That, Meath were pushing hard. Obviously, they were trying to claw back a lead. They were starting to, they were kicking at them down, but they were winning in midfield. They were creating chances, and then they just breached the 3-up rule. And then I know they have allowed a wee bit more, flexibility on that. So I suppose maybe there's no complaints, but the penalty then was that not only did they lose their attack, what happened? Ball was brought up, Rory Beggan put it on the edge of the D, 2-pointer. So it's almost a 3-point swing, going from a scoring opportunity to conceding 2 points. That just feels a wee bit heavy. That's the only thing, and that could be a very decisive thing in a big game. But listen, we're tinkering around the edges now, and that's no bad place to be, because I think the main issues now have been largely resolved, thankfully.
Dick, Stephen Cluxton.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is he still going? And like the way the little tinker into the rule change puts him back front and centre again and in vogue again, like.
That's right. Like, here, the biggest, not tragedy, but one of the things, like, we know so little about him. He's such a fascinating personality, even though we know nothing about his personality, only though he keeps to himself.
Does that build more intrigue around him, right? Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Like, you can just imagine that his presence in a dressing room, his presence, the standards. I say he's not a big talker. I say he leads by doing. He leads by the standard that he sets, and players there would just not want to disappoint him. I'd say that Armagh performance, for instance, that would never have happened with a Stephen Cluxton on the pitch, or even in the dressing room, and that you could almost sense that sense of not urgency, but that standard was raised the minute he was on the team sheet, and you could see it was a different Dublin on Saturday night against Galway, and just that confidence. Now, he was a wee bit ropey at the start with his kickouts, but it's more than just what he does on the pitch. Like, good players and leaders, I've always said this, their impact is much greater than the 70 minutes that they're on the pitch. It's what they do for the 30 odd panel members and lift the standards, and you've seen that. And listen, Dublin, as I've said consistently, if they turn up and bring their best, they're as good as it's there. And we've seen the sort of Jekyll and Hyde of Dublin the week previous. They didn't turn up, and they got a licking against Armagh, and then they turned up on Saturday night and put in a very good shift against Galway.
That was a rip-roaring game, Dublin and Galway. High-scoring game. Pádraig Joyce wasn't afraid to wield the axe either. He thought Walsh and Finnerty, he basically said they missed 2-10 between them. What are you going to do? Get people on the pitch that you have to score. And that's no harm, because they've been going very well, and those two players have been going very well. So it's no harm to give a lad a kick up the arse, so to speak.
Absolutely. And he'd have got a lot out of that defeat. Because it was, I was watching it in the background. I was somewhere socially, but it looked really intense. It looked like, it almost had a championship pace about it. Dublin were obviously intent to sort of say, listen, what happened up in Armagh the week previous or 2 weeks previous, not good enough. So they were coming out with intent. Galway had been going well. Probably, Shane Walsh, the few games that he played, breeze at his back, the 12v11 was all just maybe a bit too nice and easy for him, and he was just sort of saying, no, you're not coming up to headquarters here to kick 3 or 4 2-pointers. That's not going to happen, pal. So he got a bit of a reminder that, to win in All Ireland, you got to do a bit more. And so Galway, Pádraig Joyce, they're in a good place, and it was no bad thing to get themselves a wee bit of a reminder that they're just not there yet. And equally, they got Comer back on the pitch, and like what an explosive introduction he had. So I'd say he's coming out of there saying, you know what, we got plenty of that game. Even though we didn't get the 2 points, it wasn't a bad run up the road.
And just on Comer, we've obviously, we've seen very little of him, but the attacking mark, you'd almost say, was brought in for a player like him.
That's right. Like you'd think, and we haven't seen much of it. Like there's not actually that many of that sort of archetypal full forward ball winning. He's sort of out on his own in many ways, and I think Galway would definitely use him. Like I think it was with yourself or one of the other podcasts last year. There was a couple of games when Galway sort of lost, and he was up front on his own. Even in the All Ireland final, the ball was never kicked in, never utilised, never given him that 50-50 ball. It's not even a 50-50 ball. You put it into him, it's 60-40 in his favour. He only has to win a couple of them, and he'll do what he done on Saturday night. He'll turn and bury it in the net. So I think you're going to see him being utilised, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah, Kerry had a good win as well against Armagh, finished 2-21-17. But I have to say, I think Division 2 is where a lot of it is at this year. And there's obviously a lot of jeopardy with teams trying to get up. Teams want to make sure they don't go down and end up in a Tailteann Cup as well. So there's probably nearly more jeopardy. Like everybody wants to be up the top end of Division 2, whereas you probably wouldn't say the same about Division 1. Monaghan and Meath, it's this continuing trend, Dick, where we're talking about Monaghan putting up absolutely ridiculous scores, like 129-120. And just on Jack McCarron being brought in, was that a tactical thing where we're looking, we have the breeze at our back here, we have somebody that can kick 2-pointers, we could have enough of a buffer to get a big advantage by the break, and it's like adapting mid-half, shall we say? Or what did you make of that?
It was exactly that. Gabriel Bannigan was interviewed afterwards, and he said that they had to make a sub. One of the boys, Darren Kelly, I think it was, got a niggle. But Jack wasn't a direct replacement. It was a midfielder who went off. But they sort of said, well, listen, we have a breeze at our back here. It would be foolish to not bring him in and use it. And yeah, it was a wee bit of a roll of the dice, but very smart, very astute. And to be honest with you, I don't know why managers don't do it more often. I've always sort of said you want your shooters on the pitch with the breeze at your back, if it's so significant, because that's where they can do the damage. Whereas when you're playing against the breeze, you're living on scraps and you're not getting the most out of them. So Vuva and Jack probably just doesn't have 70 minutes in him just yet. So that's the time you want players like that. And very astute from Gabriel. And to be honest with you, I would say Monaghan, and not just been biased, looking at the scores, the performances, the way they've just kept their head down, Mike, and got on with the new rules, coached their players really well, and exploited what's there now to be exploited in terms of space and 2-pointers or whatever else is on offer. And I think that's why they're creating the scores. Like they played 20 minutes of football, not unlike what they did against Louth 2 weeks previous. That I've never seen a Monaghan team play like that. I'm seeing very few teams, without doubt, the standout team of the league in terms of the scoring, and they're I'm just looking at the table here. They have 170 points racked up. That's 25 points more than any other team in Division 1 or 2.
The guts at 30 points a game, like the guts of it. Just 28 and a half points a game. Like that's outrageous. Now, there's a few caveats to that. Like Rory Beggan now is just like such an asset. He's 28 points alone in 6 games. Like his 2-pointers, his range and the opportunities to kick 2-pointers now, between balls being brought up, between more attack and play, he's going to have 4 or 5 kicks at goal a game. And his scoring rate is 60, 70, 80%. So like there you go, he's hitting 6-8 points a game. Like that's a serious asset for any team to be going in, and it's why Monaghan are top Division 2 and they're going back to Division 1. Couple of interesting things about that game. When I was looking at it, you've been mentioning Conor McCarthy a lot throughout the show. Yeah. There is a kind of a theme though, and I look at it even with someone like Cormac Egan in Offaly, who's an inside forward almost. But the way the game changed in recent years, he scored 3 points for Offaly from wing back the other day. And like he's actually, and McCarthy's able to contribute as much, if not more, coming on to the ball from the defence than if he's taking the ball with his back to goal. Do you know what I mean? It's there's a team with attackers playing wing back now and been as effective at wing back as there would be anywhere in the forward line.
Oh, absolutely. Conor, he's just been exceptional. Even in the game that Monaghan lost against Roscommon, he was their standout player driving forward. He's a player, like he has an all-star, and it's rightly merited so, insofar as it's not just scoring, it's breaking ball, it's that link play, defending well, and like he's to me, he's the best halfback, in form halfback in the country at the minute. And in terms of the new rules, it just because why were the Conor McCarthy's and forwards, changed into halfbacks? Because before it was just too claustrophobic. A forward was wasted, sort of been put up front. So he was brought back to get into the game more, and he did, and that's how he won his all-star. But now he's even more space, like, and he's breaking forward, the tap and go, they're just eating it up. And what I noticed now, and watched Monaghan and watched other teams, players, especially forwards, they were brought up learning the game, their instinct was to go forward. Their instinct was to look forward and break forward. That's how they were trained, and now they're back doing that. Yeah. They get the ball, they're just going for it, and they're eating up the space and they're relishing it, as opposed there for the last 3 or 4 years, the instinct had been coached into them to stop, turn back, left, right, but these players now, they were bred to go forward, and that's what they're doing with real effect.
Just on that point, like 1v1 football is back. Like if you can beat your man, as I just referenced Cormac Egan there, but Offaly were very good at it against Kildare the other day. If you're able to beat your man in a 1-to-1 duel, the whole thing is open in front of you, because there's just not lads back. And if someone comes to you, then there's somebody inside, but there's not an excess anywhere, if you get me. If you can beat your man and you're able to, show him a sidestep or get whatever way you can get around him, the incentive to go past your man is massive now.
Yeah, because they're going with the confidence that if I beat him, there's space. Whereas last year they were saying, well, I beat this man, there's another 2 or 3 waiting to close me up, so I'm not even going to bother try to beat the first man, which he probably could have. They're backing themselves now to sort of say, if I can break that first line or break that man, it opens up. And like, again, one of the best doing it at the minute is Stephen O'Hanlon. Like, Stephen O'Hanlon's a perfect example. Like, he's been exceptional as well. Like, I'd say he's as fast a player as there is in the country at the minute. He's a sprinter as much as a footballer. Like, he's just saying, listen, pal, I'm skinning you, and he's just going the whole way, and he's just scaring the life out of opponents now, because they know they can't keep the pace with him. And as well, if he gets pulled and dragged, then you've got Rory Beggan rocking up to nail it over 2 points. So they've been told, and like Andy Moran, I've wrote a piece for the Independent. It's evident that Andy Moran's impact in Monaghan he's just telling the force to back themselves, play with abandon, play positive, and it's you reap a huge dividend. So I'm expecting to see far more of that from teams now, because the reward is there for teams that are ambitious and willing to push forward.
Monaghan are a perfect case in point, but the 2-pointer is massive now. If you're able to get 2, 3, 4 of them in the space of 7-8 minutes or something like that, like, you can just have a gap that looks insurmountable almost. And they made hay the other day. Meath got plenty of them, and an interesting thing, when Meath got them, they were sometimes in around the smaller arc and work their way back out. Mm-hmm. So everyone can sit back, and then you can kind of pull them back out, almost like the 3-pointer in basketball as well. But the 2-pointer is huge now. Now listen, it is going to be much harder to do it in Croke Park than anywhere else. There's no point in saying it, because it is just going to be it is a bit further out. I don't care what anybody says, it is a bit further out. But the incentive to do it is huge.
Yeah, and the big thing as well, and it's happened in a couple of games, the momentum or the swings of possession. So whatever we get in a 2-pointer, you can you have a 50-50 chance to get the ball back to go again. Whereas before, you might get a goal or a big score. Next thing, what would happen? Opposite team would chip it out, play keep ball, and just sort of suck the life out of it. That ball is coming straight back, and you can get, and Monaghan had benefited from it, and Meath did as well. Meath just shooting and let them down. I was standing with my mother watching the game, and she was sort of feeling sorry for Meath, because I said, don't feel sorry for them. They get 2 or 3 of these balls, it's game on. And I think a 10-point lead generally doesn't feel safe because all it takes 2 or 3 attacks and it's game on, which we've seen in plenty of games.
Did you see all the young lads going for the ball down there?
Don't talk to me. My 2 boys were up on the hill. I let them up, and my mother was nearly having a heart attack looking up at it. Thankfully, I just seen the hat of my youngest fella at the top of the hill. He didn't join in, but I asked him. I said, "What was that like?" He said, "Oh, there was fighting, Daddy, and there was boys hurting it." It was great to watch, but I'm just glad my boys weren't in the middle of it.
Real character building experience. I tell you, if you came out with a ball in your hands there, you do well now.
They did at the end of the game. They all ran back. There was about 5 wee lads from me. They all ran across the end of the big terrace carrying a size 5 racing away from the stewards. It was pantomime stuff.
Just some of the other results in Division 2. Cavan have really got things going, and they put themselves in a really, really good position. Chance for promotion. They had a 22 points to 20 victory over Roscommon and the Hyde. And Davy Burke had plenty to say after. Just read out something quickly. He said here, "I'd say our league campaign is over. We'll go to Westmeath next week to fill the numbers, and then we'll prepare for championship. We've no business being in league final after that type of stuff." Kind of what he's hinted on there is 2 defeats in the Hyde, but like if they beat Westmeath next week, they're in a final and they're in Division 1.
Honestly, Davey, I don't know what sometimes I think boys need to just sort of check themselves. Like, that's rubbish talk. Like, they go and beat Westmeath, likelihood they're in a Division 2 final against Monaghan, and that's not a bad place to be. So I think Davy's a good man to talk. He's a good man to interview after games. He can go one way or the other. You'll always get something out of him. Sometimes he's a bit too positive when things are going well, and then he sort of spat the dummy a wee bit there, and he's obviously very frustrated with the players. But listen, Roscommon have enough body of work in Division 2 that I think, they should be able to look forward with good confidence to the rest of the year. And listen, defeats aren't a bad thing at this time of the year. You learn a wee bit more about your team. Players learn a bit more about themselves. Don't get too cocky. So no more than Porrick, Joyce and Galway and Croke Park, Davy Burke should be looking at the positives to take from that game and sort of bring it on and put in a big performance against Westmeath and get to a Division 2 final, which they deserve.
Can I just ask you quickly, you mentioned with Davy Burke there, the minutes after a game are very raw, and from a journalistic point of view, they're often where some of the best material comes up. From your own experience as a player, did you ever say something in the minutes after a game that you were like,
yes,
go on, talk to me, tell me?
Several times, to the point that I got banned from doing interviews. I give you one example. When was it? I was working in Irish Cement. That was 2005. Let's say it was 2005, 2006. We played, you might remember this, Monaghan played Dublin in a Division 1 league game in Parnell Park. And tight game. I think we went to a draw, but Tommy Freeman got a headbutt from a Dublin selector. Do you remember that?
Oh,
and there was there was. Yeah, there was. It got very, very, very raucous at the end. The supporters, everyone ploughed out on the pitch, and we thought, Jesus, this could go up here. It definitely did. It got far too, the amount of people on the pitch, and it was fairly tensy. Somebody stuck a mic in my bloody mouth afterwards, and they said, what was the word I used? We could have done with hard hats out there. Now, it was harmless enough.
Ah, yeah.
I would have thought. No, that was grand. I was working in Irish Cement at the time as an engineer. Next thing on the back of the Daily Star and a few players was me. I had done a photo shoot for something. Me sitting with a bloody hard hat and a high vis on me. Headline. I said, for the love of Jesus. I said, are you serious? And I said, that followed me about for a while. I remember Banty giving out to me. I said, right, okay, I'll sort of find me P's and Q's. But you definitely can. That's probably the way a lot of players do. But listen, it's good content as well. And listen, and Davy's a good fella. He's always good for a soundbite or two. You do have to be careful.
Was there an edict handed down, Clerkin, no microphones?
That's pretty much it. I got a sort of black book towards the end. I think it was more bad. He just wanted all the interviewing for himself. Didn't want any other players taking the column inches.
Just quickly looking at the table in Division 2, we have Monaghan on 10, Roscommon, Meath and Cavan all on 8. Cork on 6. Good win for Cork at the weekend over Louth. I know Louth are down a hell of a lot of players at the minute. Louth on 4, Down on 4. Westmeath are relegated on 0. Despite being largely competitive in a lot of games.
Very unlucky.
Yeah, they have been unlucky, yeah, and they were beaten narrowly at the weekend in a big high-scoring game against Down. It was 126-28. The weekend's games, Monaghan and Down need to get a result there to try and stay up. Louth against Meath, there's always something on the line when Louth and Meath face, and there's going to be plenty on the line there. Roscommon go to Westmeath to fulfil the numbers, as Davy Burke says, and Cavan host Cork. Cavan are still in with a shout of promotion despite starting off quite poorly, so loads to play for there at the weekend. I'll focus on the top of the table in Division 3 first, Dick, and then we'll talk a bit about the crack and the controversy down the bottom of it. But like, as an Offaly supporter, number one, I did not see what has come on Offaly, and it was my first time to see them in the flesh against Kildare the other day. And the rules are absolutely made for a team like Offaly. We don't have that many big men, not that many really good fielders, shall we say, but really mobile, all front foot stuff. There's some guys there that are quite raw at county level, but they're abrasive and they're ballsy, to be honest with you. They'll go and take on their man and they'll try and go forward, and that was a really good result. It looked like Kildare had turned the screw. They were 11-10 down at the break. Kildare were having played second fiddle. They went 14-12 ahead, and you're thinking they can push on here, and they only kicked 3 points in the last 27 minutes of the game. And Offaly won well by 6, and Mickey Hart yet again, and despite the cynicism and our expert armchair analysis beforehand and why were his motives going to Offaly or whatever, but he's got an immediate bounce from Offaly straight away, and they're in a brilliant position.
Well, I'm just trying to do the numbers in my head. They're up, Mike.
No, they're not. They're not up because if Clare beat them by 11 or more, and Kildare win and they all finish on 10, Offaly,
because they have a good difference, so they need to get a bad beaten and Kildare, because they've beaten Kildare, so they need to lose by a lot.
Yeah, they need to. They're in a really good position.
They are.
And despite Kildare losing at the weekend, they're still in a good position.
They still should be. Yeah.
If they win at the weekend, but it's mad. Like, nobody would have predicted Louth even coming up out of 4. I'd say when Hart went there, nobody would have predicted Offaly coming out of 3. Like, I'd be straight with you. I thought it was closer to 4 that we were going rather than 2. So it's a fair turnaround, and with a fair turnover of squad and a rookie enough squad that Offaly have.
And is it obviously, I haven't got to see much of Offaly. They're new players. I don't know them personally. They haven't obviously been covered too much in the footage. Is it how would they rack up, say, in Division 2? Like, how will they do in Leinster? Like, are they the sort of guys now with the new rules that they'll give teams their fill of it?
I think so, yeah. It's funny, Brian Gavin was doing commentary for Midlands 103, and he said he was chatting to Paddy Nealon after the Roscommon ref, who obviously referees mostly Division 1 games, and he said he was actually blown away by the pace of the game, which is a good sign. And even, like, I've not been smart as a spectator and as a worker going to these games. Number one, first and foremost, these games are so much better to watch. Like, it's a joy to watch. Like, but I think in like the 7 of the All-Ireland Under-20 winning team from 2021, they're 24, 25 now. That would give you a lot of hope that things are going to be good for a while.
Good nucleus,
Yeah, but the hard stamp, Dick, is like the work rate is serious. The tackling is really good, nothing soft, nothing lazy, no arms been left in, lads diving for balls. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of like 40, 60, 30, 70 balls that they were winning just through sheer will to get the ball, and that's you can't buy that. Like,
you can't buy. And see, one of the things as well, like Mickey Hart is around a long time, and people would have, his own kin and some overly vocal pundits would have been criticising Mickey for being too negative, in his latter thrown years, and this is the type of football. If you go back to, like, I still maintain the Tyrone 05 team was, for me, one of the best teams that I've ever played against or has played the game, and that was based on the quality of their attack and play. And from that team, for the that under 20 team, or 21 team as it was then, came up through then. And before the game sort of tilted then towards the more negative football, like Tyrone played some of the best attacking football, the brilliant attackers, and Mickey Hart knew how to play attacking football. So and he's showing that with Mickey always would have been sort of saying, I'll play the game that I've got the players to play, and whatever that is, it is. And he's got attacking players that the new rules sort of benefit, and he's gonna do that. And he knows how to play a good attacking football, which you're benefiting now, obviously, from Offaly.
Yeah, big time, and they're a joy to watch. And it was great to see it, because it's just been hurling the last couple of years. There was a pitch invasion after, and like, you can't buy that type of thing. You really can't buy that. And it's great to see the two codes are going well in Offaly at the minute.
And get into, I always say that up and coming counties, you've made one opportunity to get to a final, and that could be in your league, Division 3, Division 2. We always see them as a good target, a good stepping stone, great experience for players, managers, supporters alike to get to Croke Park and win a title. Now there's a real ambition for that group of Offaly players. Don't listen to anybody saying that's only Division 3. It's only Division 3 on a stepping stone to Division 2 or a Leinster title. But that's all they can do for the minute, and go and embrace it and go for it. So it looks as if, and Mickey, in fairness, would have always been like that. He would have always respected the competitions and went out to win them, and he really wanted to win that Division 3 league title. And
he knows like he actually was saying, someone was asking him about, the high of this week and getting ready for next week. And he just said, yeah, but I love the high. Like, it's great to experience the high. Imagine if you never got that high at all, and you're like, oh, you're always tunnel vision on, has to be next week. So it's great that there's a bit of a high going around. They do need to deliver performance in Ennis this weekend to make sure that they go up. At the flip of that, Dick, obviously, like I'm trying to think, it's fairly unprecedented to me, a team not fulfilling a fixture in a national competition. And that was obviously the case with Leitrim at the weekend. And Stephen Poacher was actually on the Indo Sport podcast yesterday just explaining it. What are your own kind of thoughts around this? It's not something that's common. We don't want it to be common. What are the potential ramifications, punishments, etc., for a county not fulfilling a fixture?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the latter. We might hear about that or learn about it, because, as you say, there's no precedent for it that I can certainly remember. It's not good. My gut sense on it, I listened to Stephen. I listened to the reasons, or some people might say excuses for why they took the decision that they did. I feel they should have fulfilled the fixture. That would have been my gut sense. Do what you got to do. There's sometimes bigger things at stake, pride, reputation, the game, the integrity of the competition, as opposed to next week's fixture, or essentially what it seems to have boiled down to is an under 20 championship fixture, the middle of the week. Whatever about anything else, that seems to be the rationale. That was prioritised over having those players. Most of them could have sat on the bench, let's be honest. They didn't have to play. They could have been just there. You could have pulled in a couple. So I feel it was a poor decision. And that's, Ian, I might be unfair not knowing the exact details. He was quoted as saying the players wanted to play, which I have to challenge then. Well, why didn't you let them play? Who ultimately made the decision there? If the players were willing to, conscious of the fact that, like, the reality is, like, their league form has been awful to date. They've been getting heavy beatings in every game. It wasn't going to be a whole pile different to that, but I think it's not a good mark to have for your county. Things are getting difficult for smaller counties as it is. This is a very much a retrograde step, and it'll not reflect well. I think when the year comes to a head and they're looking back, I think this will be something that they'll regret.
The writing was probably on the wall when Mickey Graham was initially in the job, having stepped up as a coach, right, and then was quite quickly gone, from my understanding, when he realised the plethora of players that weren't going to be involved. And Stephen Poacher has talked about how they were kind of without 20 of players that were on squads in recent times or whatever. This is worrying in the short term, but it's also worrying for the coming weeks and months. Like the negativity around Leitrim, the negativity around the panel, the results obviously haven't been good as well. Like, the wheels could very, very quickly completely come off here. Some would say they're already off. Yeah.
And there's a bigger conversation that you touched on there around how what happened at the weekend was sort of a symptom or a manifestation of a lot of other things that happened over the last 6 to 8 months. Smaller counties relying on outside managers to sort of come in and give them a bump. But the reality is they leave, the whole thing can slide back. You're very susceptible to what happened with Mickey Graham. Now, that was a bit unprecedented, and that was poor form by Mickey. And I'm not afraid to say that, but it leaves a very poor reflection of the county if this is how external managers are viewing them, almost as a stepping stone, or a better option until something else comes on. Counties like Leitrim should be fighting the way to invest in their own coaches. They'd be far better off if they need to bring somebody in. Do like Monaghan have done. Bring in an Andy Moore, but he's a supporting act to a passionate Monaghan man there, and Gabriel Bannigan is part of a broader team.
It's more sustainable as well.
It's more sustainable, yeah. and I think now that's challenging in small counties, small clubs, because how many do you have? But I think as a long-term strategy, this reliance on external managers that don't always have the long-term interest of a county at heart. Their focus is the here and now and getting the best out of the team, which is ultimately the best for them. And I think that might be a sort of a reflection point for Leitrim in terms of how they resulted in having to concede that fixture. It wasn't just the players unavailable. Why did the so many players step away from the panel, Mike?
Yeah.
When that happened earlier in the year, would they have stepped away if there was a bit of continuity in terms of managers, a bit of a long-term plan, not just relying on a big high-profile manager? You have to sort of look a wee bit closer at it, and it's very disappointing for Leitrim football, very disappointing for the Leitrim players that want to play, which I know it's not something that they'll be particularly proud about walking around workplaces and colleges this week, having that mark over them.
Yeah, a bit of pressure on their 20s to deliver a performance tomorrow night as well. Just quickly touch on Division 4. Wexford already promoted on 10 points. A couple of teams in the mix underneath that. Limerick are on 7, Wicklow are on 6, Tip and Longford on 5, but looks kind of between Limerick and Wicklow for that second spot in Division 4. But all kind of roads kind of pointing to this final round. There'll be plenty of drama along the way. It's a mad kind of a day. It definitely is a red zone day, Dick, isn't it? Where we need to have screens everywhere, and there needs to be people at nearly every ground in the country reporting back what's going on. All games obviously thrown at the same time. They all have a knock-on effect on each other. TG Carroll do their best with it, I'd say, but there would be a great scenario if we could know exactly what was going on nearly everywhere, and there were constant table updates coming into us, and just would increase the drama of it all, I suppose.
There is, I'm just trying to work out. So you've got Kerry, Armagh, Tyrone, they're all in danger. Mayo should be safe, shouldn't he? No, not necessarily. No, but then you'd imagine they're going to beat Donegal. Donegal, you'd imagine, are going to do the same, put out a sort of not a weakened team, but they're not going to pick their strongest hand. So you'd fancy Mayo to win at home against Donegal, and then it comes down to those other games will be competitive, you'd imagine. Derry will not want to roll over against Armagh. They'll want to be getting ready for their championship game in a couple of weeks with a good performance, I would suspect, Mike. So there's no guarantees that any of those games will what way they'll go. So Division 1, it's more of the relegation fight is of interest, and then on the Division 2 side, it's the Roscommon and Meath Cav, and those games all have a big impact. Monaghan should get their business done against Down. So yeah, lot to look forward to, and it's been a great league. We almost have to take a bit of a breather with all the rule changes, and I think what is great, Mike, that we're sitting looking forward to the last round about the games and the contests, and we're not talking about rules, because we talked about rules near enough for the first 4 or 5 rounds. That's sort of put to bed now. We've accepted them. They're in. The few tweaks have sharpened them off. Now it's back to what it always should have been about, the games and the contests. Yeah,
we've 16 games thrown in between 1 o'clock and 3:45 on Sunday. Division 4 all kick off at 1, Division 3 kick off at 2, Division 2 kicks off at 1:30, and Division 1 kicks off at 3:45. So there'll be a nice little overlap of bits and pieces coming in there. Now, maybe 2 of them should be on Saturday, so that 3 and 4 get full focus on Saturday and aren't gobbled up. And I'm fairly sure that was the scenario up until it definitely happened in other years, I think, anyway. But there'd be a hell of a lot of games going on and a hell of a lot of permutations.
All I know is, Mike, if I'm going to play golf this weekend, it's going to be on Saturday. So I'll have to see is there any slots free.
Oh man, great stuff, Dick. Thanks a million for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you over the coming weeks again. Thanks a million.
Talk to you, Mike.
Cheers, Dick.